It was deep night when above the dark, glassy surface of the Black Sea, right at the horizon, they appeared. Almost invisible, silent, deadly. Only 4 unmanned aerial vehicles. 4. Yet behind them stood months of preparation, tons of intelligence data, and a quiet determination to strike those who felt completely safe. No one knew that this night, the 4th of December, 2025, would become the beginning of change, and for someone, the last. Now imagine this: a Crimean airbase on the western coast of the peninsula. An MiG-29 fighter jet with the red tail number 24 has just touched down on the concrete apron. Hot, as if it had just emerged from the underworld. It had not yet cooled after its sortie. More than 3 hours in the air. The target, the area of Novoozerne, north of Kherson. Civilian population, residential neighborhoods, people who never held weapons in their hands. In the cockpit, 2 pilots. They already taste victory. They are preparing to celebrate a successful operation. But this story has a second side, and it is already on the way. Ukrainian drones, flying at low altitude, creep toward the Crimean coast, violating everything the Russians considered impregnable. They do not speak over the radio. They do not appear on radar screens. They are silent, and they fly. Their target is this very MiG-29, the pride of the base, worth tens of millions of dollars. And one more target, a key radar station near Simferopol, the very one that was supposed to watch the sky, was supposed to. Almost 60 kilometers in complete silence. No signal, not a single radio transmission. Only algorithms, only calculations, only precise routes laid out by Ukrainian specialists from the main intelligence directorate. These drones knew where they were going. They moved through blind zones like along a stretched wire, between terrain, dead radar zones, and human inattention. At headquarters near Kiev, not a single unnecessary movement. Everyone knows. At stake is not just mission success. At stake are reputation, strategic initiative, and possibly the course of the entire war. And then, 2:30 in the morning, 4 drones reach the separation point. They split into 2 pairs. The first pair sets a course for Kacha Air Base. The second, for an object near Simferopol. Over the skies of Crimea, silence. Even the radars are quiet. Only faint, uncertain signals appear and immediately vanish from the screens of Russian operators. The duty officer at the Podlet station sees a pair of unstable points. Speed around 550 kilometers per hour, altitude minimal. If it had been a heavy aircraft, he would have reported immediately. But the signals are too weak, resembling reflections from waves. Sea ripple. He makes a note, false target, and erases it. At that moment, Russia had one chance, the only one, to stop what was approaching, and it was missed. The Ukrainian drones kept flying. Their airframes were made of fiberglass and carbon fiber. No metal surfaces, no reflection. Radar signature, less than 10% of that of a standard fighter jet. They were ghosts. At a distance of about 20 kilometers from the target, Russia finally realizes the threat. But it is already too late. From 2 directions at once, real targets appear. Not seagulls, not wave noise, but the enemy. The commander on the peninsula makes a decision. Switch to manual guidance. The missiles must track the targets themselves without radar assistance. That means only one thing: a launch in the hope that the missile will find the unmanned aerial vehicle on its own. From the areas of Sevastopol and Simferopol, 4 missiles burst into the sky, each costing millions. Not ordinary ones. These were 9 M96E2, specially designed to engage maneuverable and low observable targets. They can withstand extreme overloads, change course in fractions of a second, and their designers believed such missiles never fail. But Ukraine calculated everything in advance. The drones react instantly. The pair heading toward the Katya base sharply reduces altitude. They literally press themselves into the ground. The missiles are forced to chase downward at a steep angle, where the air no longer obeys aerodynamics, where turbulent flows create chaos. The pair, aimed at the radar station, veers aside along a complex arc, knocking tracking algorithms out of balance. The missiles lose their targets. Their guidance goes haywire. Targets constantly shift. Data does not match. Angles exceed the limits within which missiles can correct their course. Control surfaces lose airflow. The missiles begin to wobble, and one after another they fall into a spin. A few seconds, and multi-million warheads explode into nothing. The entire air defense system in this sector has just lost to aerial vehicles that cost tens of times less. Russia realizes that the middle line of defense has been breached. Only the last one remains, the terminal defensive boundary, where short-range systems are on duty. They were created for a last chance, when everything else has already failed. And that moment has arrived. At the Katya base, the launcher of the Pantsir complex detects a target. The signal is weak and unstable, but the operator decides to act. A 57 E6 missile launches into the sky. At the same moment, both drones begin executing one of the most complex and dangerous maneuvers: spiral rotation on course to the target. They literally twist around an imaginary axis, constantly changing the angle of approach. Pantsir loses the ability to accurately calculate trajectory interception. The missile explodes off to the side, leaving only a bright flash in the sky. The operator instantly switches to the second mode: guns. An automatic cannon of 30mm caliber, 5,000 rounds per minute. He does not try to aim at a specific target. He creates a wall of fire in the path of the drones. And he scores a hit. One of the unmanned aerial vehicles, K2, takes a direct hit. The right wing is torn off. The fuselage breaks apart, and it crashes just a few hundred meters from the runway. But along with it, a new problem appears on the screen. Debris reflecting the signal creates radar interference. Now the operator sees not one target, but dozens of points. Finding the real drone among them is almost impossible. K1 veers aside and, using the chaos, closes in on the MiG. It is already in the kill zone. Russia does not have time to react. The Katya base was one step away from catastrophe. For Russian equipment, there was no chance of survival against drones that had passed through all levels of defense. At this moment, the last of the 4 unmanned aerial vehicles, K1, was ready for the decisive strike. Inside its system, a precise algorithm had been embedded. The drone knew where its target was and knew how to destroy it. It was flying toward a MiG-29 that had just returned from an operation and was still hot, as if emerging from flames. The outlines were visible on its fuselage, a hot metal surface that could be detected even at night. In infrared radiation, the MiG was like a blazing torch. The drone system locks onto the target and automatically switches to final attack mode. Its speed is 382 kilometers per hour. Its altitude is only 138 meters. In a matter of seconds, it covers a distance that would take others an entire minute. And now, the moment has come. A signal appears on the screen. Priority target, MiG-29. I-1 finds its route and moves toward the left flank of the aircraft. It locks onto the strike point, the third hard point, where the aircraft's structure is vulnerable. It launches its final attack, and just seconds before impact, a thermite warhead emerges from the drone's fuselage. Explosion. Flames burst outward as the core temperature of the thermite warhead reaches 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit. It instantly melts the aluminum frame of the aircraft, turning it into a heap of metal and char. An explosion inside the fuel tank tears the wing apart, creating a deadly stream of fire. That is it. The MiG-29 is destroyed. A powerful blast shakes the Kacha base. A massive cloud of smoke rises into the sky, engulfing the base area. Fire crews are already running, but even they do not manage to reach the devastated site in time. The MiG-29, the key target of the attack, has been wiped from the face of the earth. The Kachinsky Air Base lost more than just an aircraft. It lost its ability to respond quickly to threats. This loss was catastrophic. There was no other fighter at the base with the same level of readiness. The base instantly lost its rapid defensive capability, and this meant that the entire Crimean peninsula became vulnerable to further attacks. But that was not all. Meanwhile, two other drones, I-1 and I-2, continued their operation. They did not waste time. Their target was different, a strategically important radar station near Simferopol, a system on which Russia placed all its hopes for controlling the airspace in this area. The drones begin to descend, hiding from radar detection. Both fly at minimal altitude, only 150 meters above the ground, while their speed exceeds 380 kilometers per hour. Still at extremely low altitude, they approach the station until they find their strike point. And now, the moment of truth. The infrared system of I-1 locks onto the radar antenna. It stands out as a bright thermal outline. The radar is the heart of Russia's entire defense in Crimea. Without it, Russian air defense systems would lose all information about low-flying objects like these drones. If one begins its final descent, onboard instruments are calibrated, calculations on screens and within algorithms are precise, and the drone, moving along its path toward the target, begins its final maneuver. At the moment of impact, when the thermite warhead pierces the metal structures of the antenna, the radar station descends into chaos. Inside its control cabins, screens flicker, and then everything disappears. The temperature at the point of impact reaches such an extreme level that the entire antenna structure collapses. Emergency shutdown systems activate, but they are powerless against the thermite, which has destroyed everything. At that moment, another strike follows. E2 continues the attack. It hits the alarm panel that controlled the station's processes. Another explosion, and the signal on the screens at the Russian headquarters dies. The entire radar system, with its powerful capability to track targets close to the ground, ceases to function. A strategic Russian facility is destroyed. In just a few seconds, two strikes, and the key radar station in Crimea goes dark. The antenna collapses, the control unit is destroyed. On the screens of Russian operators, darkness, a complete loss of communication, complete blindness. The system that had been relied upon to repel attacks no longer existed. At the Kacha Air Base, panic. The explosion of the MiG became a blow not only to equipment, but to the entire rapid response structure. This aircraft had been the only one on constant readiness. With its destruction, Russia lost the ability to immediately intercept targets in the air. It will take weeks to restore a duty-ready status. And this is not just a local failure. This is a signal. In a single night, Ukraine proved that it can overcome any line of defense, deliver a precise strike, and withdraw without losses. With inexpensive drones, almost silently and accurately. A billion-dollar air defense system proved powerless. From that moment on, no Russian base in Crimea could consider itself safe anymore.